Hey guys, how are you? It's the middle of the night, and I'm on call, and I woke up because I'm just when I'm on call, I'm just waiting for the phone to ring, and I was inspired to do this video. So I've been a little bit MIA, and I'm really trying to post videos on Sunday, but I have been up north doing an outpost nursing contract. And in my last video, I talked about how it felt so good to be back to really one of the roots of my nursing career. Well, it has been quite the journey over the last 2 weeks, and it has been incredibly busy. And when I have had downtime, I just haven't known what to say because I have been thinking and reflecting about my experience here in this community with the healthcare system, but also my reflecting on my nursing career and where I want to go forward. And so I just want to first clarify what an outpost nursing position really is. And so essentially I'm in a First Nations community where they have a health center. In the old days, we used to call it a nursing station, which is essentially manned with advanced practice nurses. And this community is very lucky to have a full-time nurse practitioner on staff. And so essentially we provide primary care, health services from Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30. And we provide all of the emergency care in the evening, nights, and weekends. And so we work 24 hours a day. We each take turns doing call, and it's been very busy. The nurse practitioner who's here, she primarily focuses on complex chronic disease management and high-risk prenatals, making sure that, and anybody that really is high risk that's falling through the cracks, making sure they're having access to care. And the physicians come in twice a week to provide primary care services. It's a pretty incredible health center, and the staff is amazing. The people of this community are amazing. But holy smokes, I forgot how crazy busy it can be. I forgot about how much trauma that I would be exposed to. In my nursing career, I've always had this little black cloud above my head, and if shit's gonna hit the fan, I'm gonna be on shift. And that's kind of how the last 2 weeks have been. And the staff have said, oh my God, Shasta, you really have had the worst introduction into this community with some of the experiences that I've had. And while I'm thankful that was on, and the expertise that I had, and amazed with the muscle memory of being able to handle those situations that I haven't been in many years, it's like riding a bike. It just comes back to you. And it's like your body and your mind just take over. With that being said, it's made me really reflect on what I want to do with my life when I grow up. What do I want to do? And I have to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm on the brink of a big change. I don't know where my business is going. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing outpost stints. I really don't know. I'm in a point of confusion. And the anxiety within me, the need for control is, I'm pleasantly surprised that it's not making me panic. That I'm just able to sit with it and be okay with not knowing. It's a really hard thing to do. I've never been able to do that in my entire life. I'd like to have a plan. I am very detailed in that plan. I like to do lists. I mean, I've talked about this many, many times before. But yeah, I'm confused. I'm confused that, do I even want to do nursing? Yeah. Um, you know, coming back into an outpost, I realized that in the 10 years since I've left that type of work, really not much has changed. It saddens me, the health state of our Aboriginal people still, especially since we're considered one of the best countries in the world. Yeah, and just really thinking about, can I keep myself healthy doing this work? Because that's really the question, right? What I've noticed is that I get into this cycle. When I get into a new environment, I hit the ground running. I'm a people pleaser. I take on twice the amount of work as other people generally. It's just my natural work ethic. And unfortunately, I can do it with quite a lot of ease. And when I think about why do I do that, right? It comes down to those core wounds. And I know I've talked about core wounds before. Core wounds are a big part of my coaching program. And they're important because, people will say, what does it have to do with health and well-being, Shasta? You're not a counselor. It has everything to do with health and well-being, because it really is the root of how we show up in the world. It's if we have unhealed wounds, which most of us do, it takes a lifetime to work on these things. It affects it defines how we interact with the world, how we show up in the world, how authentic we live our lives, how our relationship with ourselves and our health and well-being is directly related to the relationship that we have with ourselves. And what I learned about this cycle that I get in of people pleasing and taking on twice the amount of work, and that core wound is really wanting to be seen, to be wanting to be validated, to be wanting to really provide the most exceptional care possible, and to impress people along the way. Cognitively, that's not why I'm doing it, but really, when I look at it, that's why I want to be well liked. I want to be seen as an incredible value to a team. And I hate to admit, I want to be seen as the most valuable part of the team. And that's because of that core wound that drives that insecurity, that drives that need for external validation, that drives the people pleasing. And what I'm thankful for is that 2 weeks in, I'm able to see those patterns, and really kind of, put the brakes on, stop the bus from crashing because, this weekend, well, Friday, um, I was burned, and after being only here for 2 weeks, um, part of that is because I experienced some major trauma. Um, and for the first time in my career, I asked for help. Um, I said, hey, I need a mental health afternoon. I need to go and rest, um, to process. And what I realize is when we ask for what we need, um, people are drawn to us. People open their arms wide. And we really underestimate people. I thought I would be judged, seen as weak, seen as, um, that I was a baby, that I couldn't hack it. Um, how dare I, since I'm here as a relief. Um, but the overwhelming response I got of course, you should take that time. You're only human, right? And the reality is being an empath and being incredibly an emotional being. Um, oh man, I feel. I'm an intense feeler, and I feel people's pain, and I feel people's, whether it's emotional or physical, and that takes a toll. Um, and so, I had a bit of shame as I went home to rest, but that quickly dissipated by the support, and really about being able to show up for myself for one of the first times in my career, to be able to say, hey, um, I can't sustain this work. I can't be of value to the team if I am not well myself, right? And really, isn't that what it's about, right? It's about putting our needs first above everybody else. And I have this conversation almost on a daily basis with women because we are taught to, just culturally, to put on a brave face, to smile, to look pretty, and to take care of everybody at the expense of ourselves. That's ingrained in our culture. That's the expectation of us as a woman. Uh, and that's what's making us sick. I truly believe that, those core wounds, the coping personalities like people pleasing and perfectionism and those things affect our relationship with ourselves and how we care for ourselves, how much compassion we give ourselves, how much, um, appreciation we have for our self and our bodies. It's reflected in how we move our bodies, how we nourish our bodies, how we speak to ourselves, right? That inner dialogue. Are we giving ourselves a pat on the back? Or are we being highly critical? Are we being our number one hater? And in a lot of my old videos, I talk about we gotta show up and be our own ride or die. And when we start to become our own ride or die, when we start to ask for what we need, when we start to recognize the ingrained paths, right? We're not premeditating and doing these things. These are neural pathways in our brain that are dug so deep, that we have behaviors that we don't even recognize. And on the outside, they're socially acceptable. They're praised. When we take back our power, when we see where our energy is being drained. When we reflect and say, hey, this doesn't feel good. I'm exhausted. My mental capacity is not in a good mind space. That's when we get health and well-being, right? When we ask for help. And, I work in a helping profession, and I say this to people all the time, you're not alone. Ask for help. And I'm really good about giving advice. I'm not necessarily really good about taking it for myself. And I wanted to share this experience with you because that's life, right? That's the good and the bad and the ugly of life. I mean, that's the journey of getting to know ourselves better, about developing that deeper relationship, about nurturing those wounds and nurturing ourselves. And all of that is so connected to our physical symptoms, right? Those are the root causes of why certain things come up in our lives. Chronic pain, chronic fatigue, mental health illnesses, inflammatory disorders, autoimmune disorders, like so much of the things that we experience from a health perspective are linked to emotional causes, are linked to the relationship that we have with ourselves that has been built upon a core wound. So those are my thoughts at 1:00 in the morning. I guess it's Wednesday. So yeah, that's my reflection in the middle of the night that I felt that I wanted to share with you. Yeah, so get curious about when you're drained. What's your part in it? We're so easy to point the finger, say, oh, well, I'm overworked, I'm not, whatever, right? But what are you taking on? And just get curious, right? Curiosity is essential because judgment, shame, blame doesn't solve anything. It adds to the layer of suffering. Yeah. And as women, I think we're so good at playing the guilt, shame, blame on ourselves, right? We take on everybody else's problems. If things don't go right, we crucify ourselves. And at the end of the day, think about how powerful we would be if we were whispering, if we were our own ride or dies. Think about that. If we all focused on ourselves and our own health and well-being, instead of taking care of everybody else, allowing them to be on their own, take responsibility for their own journey, just think about how powerful we would be. We're pretty powerful, and most of us are burnt out and exhausted and fatigued, and we're running circles around people, right? But think about how, endless possibilities. So I'm sitting in curiosity around, my patterns of behavior and what that's rooted in. I'm sitting in uncertainty, which is a really uncomfortable place for me to be. Just not knowing what I want to be when I grow up, what I want to do, because my focus is really about self-preservation and my own joy and happiness. I've never been motivated by money. And while and that's a whole other conversation. And so, anyways, those are my thoughts. I miss you all. I'm sorry that I have been MIA, but yeah, I'm busy, and I'm sure you are too. And so I'm looking forward to reconnecting. Um, I'll be back home in 6 days, and yeah, I'm hoping to do a lot more videos and just connecting with you in the most raw and real way that I can. Okay, take care. Bye now.